This peak, I have an altimeter on a watch. This peak is roughly 7,200 meters. When we hit this area, we were totally lost. This peak does not exist on any map I've ever seen since we met this. It wasn't supposed to be there. We come through this blizzard fog, and all of a sudden, I realize, first of all, I think we're close to 6,000 meters. We were over 6,000 meters. And this peak is way above us, and yet it appears on no map to this day I've ever seen.
Jeff, did you ever think you wouldn't make it?
Yes, we had, yes. On this particular journey, 2 of my best friends almost died. We had a guy fall down a glacier, 800 meters. He was 15 meters in front of me. He turned to say something on a 45-degree angle and lost his balance and slid like a shot down. That was the one moment I thought, this is all done, and I'm going to be paying for this for the rest of my days. But I was also, when you do these things, you're obviously slightly obsessive and neurotic. And by doing that, you're in denial of certain realities. So I thought we could do it. I wasn't sure how, and I thought at one point this may take over a year. And of course, there's the budget considerations, which I'm not talking about. This man was insane. It was great. One of the best interviews I've ever done with a trader. He was telling us a story for 5 hours about the days of the tea horse road, how many women he'd conquered, how much tea he'd sold. So, and he was going on, as old men do, about the youth of today. I won't elaborate because we all know what I'm talking about. So he seemed very legitimate and very authentic. And yet at the end of the interview, his wife walked in and said, "What has he been telling you?" So he told us that in his life, he'd figured out that about 24 years of his life had been spent on the trade routes, toing and froing. So at this point, we knew it was going to get interesting because his wife's eyes lit up a little bit. She brings out this big ledger, and she opens the book. She had counted every single day he'd ever been gone and where he said he'd been. You know where this is going to go. And I'm going to go there. He was telling her, back in 19 whatever, I was in the north of Nepal, and then I came back to Chengdu and Sichuan, and then I came back to you. When he told his wife this, he told her a different story, which she had written down those years ago. So she said, "Could you clarify what you mean by you were there?" And she said, "Well, I've got you down in another area." Long story short, it wasn't just about trade that he was gone from home. I want to just point out that the Tea Horse Road provided a blueprint for many of the highways now that exist in southwestern China. From Chengdu straight to Lhasa, there is a highway. That is based upon the rough blueprint of the Tea Horse Road. The highway that goes from southern Yunnan through Yunnan complete and into Tibet, all the way to Lhasa, is also built upon an ancient trade route. This still goes on, although the Tea Horse Road is a complete entity, or the salt roads are dead, essentially. The spirit of them lives on, the memory. But in between towns, in the mountains, it's still like this. This is in Galigongshan. This is in central Yunnan. And this is not a staged shot. This is actually a villager actually going to another village to supply them with, I think, pine nuts. Oh. My father said many times that if we had tea and food and each other, that was enough. We didn't have a word for poor. We simply had enough. This doesn't mean anything. It just means the world's changing. But I love these words. And this man drank us all under the table, not once, not twice, but 3 times. 2 times with tea, 1 time with whiskey. 76 years old, annihilated us. Just to put tea in a little bit of a perspective, tea is one of the ancient world's great medicines. In ancient China, it was actually called du, bitter herb. Before it was a consumable and something casual, it was actually a medicine. There's books in ancient China just on water preparation for a tea. One of the things that tea does is tea has enzymes that are one of the most powerful pancreatic stimulants in the natural world. So diabetes, alcoholism, these sorts of things are actually now being researched in a context of how can tea aid with this.